I started out my career in nutrition at Cornell, and then went to the University of Wisconsin where I got a master's degree, then worked in the food industry at Procter & Gamble for a while, and then ended up at the Harvard School of Public Health where I got a doctorate, and I stayed for several years on the faculty. My interest is public health nutrition, particularly chronic degenerative disease, and I started out my work back early on working on the whole issue of dieting in adolescent girls back in the 60s and 70s. It was just beginning to become popular. And so I studied dieting, and I also got interested in the alternative movements, the Eastern influences that were so prominent during the 70s. And so I studied vegetarians, different kinds of vegetarians, and some who were doing just fine, other people who were on very restrictive diets who had some problems. Got very much interested in that, and I've been interested in that ever since. The other thing that I got interested in early on in my career was the White House Conference on Nutrition and Health, which my supervisor, my doctoral supervisor, Johanna, was the director of. And so what I did as a postdoc was work at the Harvard School of Public Health all week, and then every weekend I'd fly to Washington and staff some of the committee meetings that were going on the White House Conference. That ran into a bit of a snag because I started bouncing checks about halfway through the summer, and I couldn't go down there until I got some payment. As usual, the government was very late in paying me. I was only getting travel expenses, but still it seemed to be a lot for them. So I staffed the conference, got a lot out of it, and ended up with a bug, Potomac Fever, if you will, on nutrition policy. And since that time, I've been sort of straddling two careers, one in Boston, working first at Harvard and then at Tufts as a scientist, and then the other part being a scientist involved in nutrition policy. I started out working on the whole issue of energy metabolism and obesity. Did a lot of work on that, some on dieting, some on following kids who'd been in a physical activity and dietary modification program back in the 60s to do a 5-year follow-up on them. Then I broadened and began to do more in chronic degenerative diseases as well as simply energy metabolism. And at the same time continued that interest in alternative diets, vegetarian diets, different kinds of diets for various purposes, including therapeutic diets. So gradually I worked more and more in chronic degenerative disease and kidney disease, heart disease, and so forth. Spent a lot of time on clinical trials, which I think everybody should be involved in nutrition. It's very, very interesting to test hypotheses with clinical trials. Well, I've done a couple of things that have been very fulfilling. One is working with the National Academy of Sciences on the Food and Nutrition Board as a member, and on a number of committees for the National Academy, and I'm a member now of the Institute of Medicine, which has been a very interesting experience and also was a great honor. I was also delighted to be a president of the predecessor of the American Society for Nutrition back in the 90s, and had a wonderful time, mainly because I met people in fields that were peripheral to what I was doing in nutrition, who were just terrific people, animal nutritionists, some cell biologists. I'll never forget those 3 years of active involvement on the board of ASN. What else have I done? Well, I was lucky to get a Robert Wood Johnson Health Policy Fellowship back in the 80s, and I worked for two people. One was Senator Dick Lugar of Indiana, and the other was now Senator Barbara Mikulski of Maryland, working on various nutrition policy issues in Congress. And that's led to a lasting interest in the legislative branch as well as the executive branch of government. Today, I'm at ODS about half of my time as a contractor and working at the Office of Dietary Supplements at NIH, doing work primarily on databases for dietary supplements, which really haven't existed until very recently, thanks to collaborations with agriculture and other departments within the federal government. And I've also been working with colleagues here on analyzing population-based surveys to find out what exactly the role of dietary supplements is in terms of overall nutritional status and health. So it's been a fascinating period of time since I've been in Washington. I see nutrition research really going towards system biology at the cellular level all the way up to the whole organism. But at the same time, I see nutrition science also becoming broader and more sophisticated perhaps in terms of the social sciences. And that, of course, is equally important. So we've got a lot of new challenges and new opportunities as well in our field.